It's the Tuesday evening edition of Weather for Weather Geeks here on January the 5th, our coldest morning, our coldest day overall in about 10 months across the region today. Temperatures this morning started off in the single digits throughout western PA and eastern Ohio. Officially at the airport, it was 5 degrees above zero this morning. We had a 3 in Cortland, 8 in Salem, 5 Mespo, 5 Berlin Center. Yikes, pretty cold stuff. Nowhere near a record, but cold nonetheless. And temperatures are retreating again this evening. We're already down to 20 here in the 7 o'clock hour in Youngstown, 23 in Pittsburgh, and 23 degrees in Cleveland this evening. Still a mostly clear sky overhead, so it's going to continue to cool off. I thought I'd throw up a kind of an experiment here, taking a look at, this is called the High Resolution Rapid Refresh model. It's that model that we use in the first 15 hours of the forecast. Usually I'm showing you what that model has for the future radar, but I'm going to put up that model's version of temperatures tonight, just to see how it might verify. This might end up being too cold, but you'll notice what it does here. Middle of the night tonight, this model has Newton Falls down to 1, Boardman at 3, Berlin Center at 8. This might be a little too cold, but maybe not by much. I think in some of the colder nooks and crannies, we could certainly see some single digits out there tonight. In western Trumbull County, this is traditionally one of our colder spots. This model even has it going very near or even a little below zero. I think that's overdone, but nonetheless, some of you in the colder spots might wake up well down into the single digits again tomorrow morning, while on average it'll be around 9, 10, 11 degrees to kick off the day Wednesday. So we'll see how that model performs for us overnight tonight. All right, across the country this evening, we're going to focus on the west for a change because there's not much going on locally. This is a big-time, headline-grabbing storm out here in California, where it has been just a washout in LA. It's pouring rain in Palm Springs, California this evening. And there's snow, of course, up in the Sierras. This is a storm that definitely being influenced some by El Nino. This is not El Nino, what you're seeing here on the radar. If you're watching this video, you're probably weather savvy enough that you know what headlines you might see in the news that tend to be a little bit ridiculous. El Nino is not a storm. El Nino is the warming of the waters in some parts of the Pacific Ocean that tends to influence the jet stream. It tends to magnify some storms a little bit, give them a little more oomph, if you will, as they come into California. So this is a pretty big deal out there. All right, closer to home, high pressure drifts off to the east for the next couple of days. Tomorrow is another uneventful day, cold start, but with a late southerly breeze kicking in for the afternoon. We'll start to get in on somewhat warmer temperatures before the day is through on Wednesday, mid-30s. And Thursday's even warmer as the wind tries to come around to the south-southwest once again. Nothing more than just some high clouds mixed with the sun. No big deal at all. So a couple of nice days tomorrow and Thursday. As we've been talking about, our next rainmaker comes our way on Friday. Probably not first thing in the morning, but as we get into the midday and the afternoon, we'll start to see these rain showers pushing in. But notice the warm front's well off to our north at this point, so temperatures by Friday and especially Saturday will have no trouble getting into the upper 40s to around 50 degrees. As we head towards the end of the weekend then, let's talk about the whole weekend actually. Here's Saturday. On Saturday, our cold front's out here, warm front up here. We're kind of in between. I don't think there's a lot of moisture around, but there's probably a lot of clouds. There could be a rain shower here and there on Saturday. I think as we go into the day on Sunday, this is when the cold front moves through, probably in the morning hours. So Sunday may be one of those backwards days where the high occurs in the morning with falling temperatures in the afternoon. The big forecast challenge on Sunday is, as the cold air wraps in, is there enough moisture left over to produce any sort of snow of substance? At this point, I doubt it. I doubt there's any snow of substance. I don't think we're going to be shoveling on Sunday. It's only Tuesday, so there's still plenty of time to work this out. But what I do think happens is rain changes over to maybe some wet snow showers Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. I don't think it's going to add up to a whole lot, as temperatures will probably still be above freezing at that point. But then the cold air, the Arctic air, wraps in for early on next week, and we're going to be dealing with some flurries here and there. I think the lakes will be wide open for business next week. Snow belts of far northeast Ohio, northwest PA, southwest New York would do pretty well at times next week with the lake effect. Warm waters still well above average, those water temperatures over the lakes. All right, the upper level pattern transposed here with the surface temperatures for next week. Notice the green blob coming south as we go into the weekend and beyond. Here's Saturday, and then here's Sunday. Really cold air coming down. You know, they're playing a playoff game in Minnesota I think it's in Minnesota. Even if it's in Green Bay, it's still going to be awful. Sunday afternoon and evening, very cold weather in the upper Midwest. Basically what you have happening here is a couple of lobes of low pressure. You could even call one of these the polar vortex if you want, but it doesn't matter. Will be kind of pivoting south, and chunks of Arctic air will be released down into southern Canada and the U.S. And we're not going to get into these green, cold colors here in eastern Ohio, western PA. The air mass will modify coming across the Great Lakes, but it's still going to be pretty cold next week. As we go through midweek, we're probably talking temperatures no warmer than the 20s and overnight lows, single digits, fairly common. You can trace these lines over Ohio, back up through Canada, and back up into the polar regions. So that's the source of our air mass next week, is far northern Canada and up into the North Pole area. Now, the big question is, how long does this last? I've been talking about this for a few days. There's not much evidence to support this being winter locking in. Last year what happened, and it was actually on this date, last year on the 5th of January, cold front swept through, it changed the weather pattern, and winter basically then locked in for about 2 months, all the way through March the 6th. We had 2 solid months of winter weather that very rarely let up. It let up a little bit for a day or two in January. It almost never let up in February, and even the first week of March was very cold. This time around, it's going to be cold for a lot of next week, but I don't see much evidence that it just locks in, and boy, it's going to be harsh winter from here on out. Notice what we have going on here as we go towards the end of next week. The area of low pressure over Hudson Bay, which was down here, starts retreating off to the north, and that allows more of a Pacific influence across the lower 48 states. As that continues retreating, our air masses will be crossing the country like this instead of coming down like this. So it's not a real warm pattern by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think as we head towards the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th of January and into the final 10 days of the month, I don't see a lot of true Arctic intrusions heading our way. So that's why we still think January will probably shake out near or even a little above average in terms of temperatures. Nowhere near what we had in December. But next week's cold is not necessarily kind of a precursor of things to come for the rest of winter. Look at the European model temperatures with that Arctic air next week. Here's Sunday morning. Notice the upper Midwest, minus teens, below zero. And the cold air comes east in a modified form, so by Tuesday, we're looking at afternoon highs mid-20s locally, much worse off to the west. Next Wednesday, kind of the same idea. Maybe no warmer than the teens for one day next week. The European has that on next Wednesday. I'm not sure if it's that cold, but it's possible. It's on the table that we have a day where we don't get out of the teens during the middle of next week. So we'll see how that shakes out. All right, and finally tonight, a quick look at February on the climate model. This paints a pretty warm picture, but you have to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. This same model had January being quite a bit warmer than average for a lot of the U.S. as recently as just a couple of weeks ago. And over the last couple of weeks then, the model started to figure out the pattern a little better, showing that January is not going to be all that warm in that many places. February, right now, advertised to be pretty warm in a lot of Canada and the U.S., but I guess I wouldn't be surprised at all if this model starts... Whoops, let's go back here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this model starts retreating the warmth again, the warm anomalies, back into Western Canada and allows for more cool weather in through here. I still think February, compared to the averages, will be our coldest month of the winter compared to average, with the most frequent outbreaks of chilly air, probably the most snow out of every month of the winter. So I still think that winter is pretty backloaded this year, despite what the climate model says right now. Now, if this is still singing the same song in about 2-3 weeks, then we'll have to make some adjustments to February. But right now, I think that February will be colder than this model is showing. Thanks for watching the Tuesday Night Weather for Weather Geeks. I'll see you right back here on my weather blog at wfmj.com/weather Wednesday evening by about 7:30 or 8. And as always, if you're watching the tube tonight, check out my forecast on 21 News at 11. I'll see you then.